Okay, so let's look at question 7 of the higher unit 1, specimen 2 nab. The diagram below shows a graph of y equals a cos bx plus c. Write down the values of a, b and c. So the first thing we'll look at is this value here, a. Now a tells you the amplitude of the graph, i.e. how high and how low it goes. In this case though, the graph has actually been shifted. So what we need to look at is the difference between the top value and the bottom value, and the highest value and the lowest value. In this case it's 6, and then we halve it. So A is actually 3. Common mistake would be to write 4 there. Okay, if we now look at what B is. Now B is to do with the period of the graph. This number here tells you how many waves repeat between 0 and 360. So if you look at this pi over 3, this gives us the hint, if you like. Now pi over 3, if you like working in degrees, pi over 3 is the same as 60 degrees. So if we've got one wave in 60 degrees, we have to think how many repeats there will be in 360. And since 360 divides by 60 6 times, B is 6. Okay, the last thing we need to work out is C. And the way to do this is to think about where the graph was before it was shifted up or down. So we said the amplitude of this graph is 3. That means it would go up to 3 and down to minus 3. So that would look like this. But this graph actually starts at 4, so it's been shifted up by 1 place. That means C is 1. So the equation of the graph is y equals 2 cos 6x plus 1. Okay, question 8. Sketch the graph of y equals a sine x plus pi over 4 for all values between 0 and 2 pi, and also a is greater than 0. It says here, clearly show the maximum and minimum values and where it cuts the x-axis. So we have to put all these values in or we won't get all our full marks. So the first thing to do, that I would do, is to draw a basic sine wave. Now, the strange thing about this is we're not actually given a value for the amplitude, it's actually just a. So instead of putting in 4 or 3 or whatever number you wanted to put in that would be in front of sine, just put a instead. An a up here and a negative a down here. Another thing that might throw us a wee bit is the fact that this is in radians and we're used to drawing in degrees. So make sure you draw it in radians. You should know that 2 pi is 360, pi is 180, 3 pi over 2 is 270 and pi over 2 is 90. Right, the next thing we have to do is we have to understand what this means to the sine wave. Now, just as before, I think it was in question 6, this shifts the graph forwards and back, this part here, it's the phase angle. So in this case, a plus moves backwards and a negative means forwards, so we're going to shift this direction by pi over 4. Now again, I don't mind if you think in terms of degrees. Pi over 4 is 180 divided by 4, which is 45 degrees. Or if you've got it like this, you can think a quarter pi is just here. So we basically have to shift the graph back by a quarter pi or 45 degrees. That would be somewhere like that. Now you don't need to continue the graph down here, this is just the way I've got it, and you don't need to continue it after 2 pi along here. What we must now do though, we must get this here, this here, this here, and this here. We must get all these values and write down what they are. So this value here, again, if you prefer working in degrees, where this is 360 and we've moved back 45 degrees, so that's 315. And this value here is 180 take away 45, so that's 135. Now to try change that into radians, it's sometimes easier just to do 135 over 180 and 315 pi over 180. Put the pi and divide by 180. Now a quick trick to try and cancel it down as quick as you can. Quite often it's a good idea to try and divide by 45. Both numbers often divide by 45, so the bottom is going to go to 4 and the top 3 in this case. That's here. And this one, the bottom's 4 and the top one's 7. Okay, so that's what these values here are. I'll just take that here and put it here. And just take that one as well. And put it. Okay, now we can do the same idea to the maximum and minimum. We should know that this maximum here is just pi over 4 though, and it goes up to a, so make sure you write it as a coordinates, pi over 4 and a height. That looks like this. And this value here is between pi and 3 pi over 2. In degrees, that's going to be 180 plus 45, it's 225, and that works out as 5 pi over 4a. Again, you can work that out the same way as you did up here. That's your graph finished then. You've got your values in here and here where it cuts, and you've also labelled in the maximum and minimum values.